breakfast.
When you entitle your latest publication Great Action Comics, well, let's just say that you're writing a pretty big check. Fortunately, IW Enterprises were nothing if not audacious. Founded by Israel Waldman, IW was infamous for reprinting other comic publishers' titles without permission. In addition to its dodgy business practices, IW was notoriously slipshod in its production, paying little attention to such niceties as sequential numbering or finishing stories. Working from pre-existing plates Waldman had acquired by purchasing defunct comic companies, IW cranked out comics by the hundreds, sidestepping bothersome little details like acquiring intellectual property rights. The company trotted out material from publishers like Avon, EC, Fox, Fiction House, Quality, and Timely Comics, among many others, before ending in 1964. We're no stranger here to IW, having featured Dream of Love, number 8, a few weeks back. Now we're going to follow that up with another anthology title, the aforementioned Great Action Comics number 1. In our first tale, we meet Dr. Tom Tom, described as a medical wonder worker among the Indians. No slam on Dr. Tom Tom here, but I'm guessing they have pretty low standards, what with being out in the middle of whatever jungle this is meant to be and all. The doc is tending to a patient's broken leg when the man drops a package. Intrigued by the vial that conveniently rolls out, Dr. Tom Tom has a look at its contents under a magnifying glass. What at first appear to be simple germ cultures are quickly revealed to be miniaturized tiny natives. Dr. Tom Tom goes undercover by, and I'm not kidding you, stripping down to his skivvies and applying sienna stain to his skin. This makes him, well, red. This makes him a very red-white guy. How this disguise passes muster among the locals with long hair and Pacific Islander features is glossed over. Hey, these are great action comics, and it's darned well timed for some. The doctor and his young sidekick Jose smash their way through the underworld, uncovering a spy ring and human trafficking operation in their very midst. From his secret mountaintop temple, the wicked Dr. Cruello tricks the local populace into climbing into his weird shrinking machine. Dr. Tom Tom and Jose go mano a mano with the doctor's evil army. Seeing the writing on the wall, the doctor's assistant switches sides, freeing the captives, and Cruello is killed with an arrow in the back. That's gotta sting. The story ends abruptly, leaving me wondering if a page was left out. Like I said, slipshod. Next up, we have Detective Darrell in the case of the man with the mirror eyes. Our adventure begins as all the best adventures do, with our hero bored shitless and stimulating his T-zone on the couch. Thankfully, his reverie is broken by a phone call from friend Dawn, who seems to be in big trouble. Darrell rushes to the scene only to encounter the nefarious Mirror Eyes, a criminal mastermind Darrell has been after for years. Mirror Eyes and Darrell engage in a bit of playful banter before the ball gets rolling in the form of a machine that turns humans into living skeletons. Dawn is subsequently transformed, the object of blackmail. Darrell needs to come up with 50 big ones too sweet, or Dawn will be left in his skeletized form, great googly moogly. Only it's all bunk. It's hokum. It's hogwash. It turns out it's a double cross, as Don is working with Mirror Eyes to trick his friend. Only it's a triple cross, with Don only pretending to betray Darrell, and instead, well, I'm not really sure what this accomplishes other than bringing the story in at an economical 8 pages. His plans thwarted, Mirror Eyes is seemingly killed by one of his own traps. Really, he just kind of jumps into a hole, yells, "Ah!" and then holds his hand up so we see a shadow, but hey, why investigate? These guys have a hearty meal to eat. Our issue concludes with one of the most underdressed heroes in comicdom. Okay, sure, maybe there's some tactical advantage here that I'm not picking up on. Never underestimate the fear and anxiety generated by a nearly nude man in a cape and pixie boots running at you. Well, unless you like that sort of thing, of course. The point is, however liberating it may be, as a crime fighter, this outfit is damned impractical. And don't get me started on that hat. Captain Truth here busts up a Nazi Bund stealing tungsten from a light bulb factory, but one of the crafty Krauts escapes. The captain, no longer needed, reverts to alter ego Ken Elliott. I have to admit, I was skeptical of this whole costumed identity thing at first, but this disguise is perfect. Why, Ken can't be Captain Truth. He's wearing pants. But I digress. It turns out the tenement Ken lives in is being demolished to make way for a new low-rent project. This is a benefit to all of those suddenly homeless people somehow. Ken stays with a young friend whose father, Slug Baxter, turns out to be a member of the gang Ken busted earlier. The story abruptly takes a 180 turn into fantasy when a gypsy shows up and the kid discovers he can fly. Before you can sputter "what the hell" through your corn pops, the tone shifts yet again, turning into a piece of pro-American World War II propaganda. The kid's miraculous new ability doesn't enter into the resolution of the story in any way. In fact, it's never brought up again. We finish with Gangster Slug seeing the error of his ways and turning over a new leaf with his son, who can fly. Okay, Great Action Comics, whatever you say. Now, I knew nothing about this book when I found it at my local comic shop, but for $3 I knew I had to take a chance. And I'm glad I did, as these IW books have been a real blast of nutball fun. I'll be looking for more from this company in the future. Born in 1970, I missed the Monkees on television the first time around, but I was lucky enough to catch the show in reruns at the end of the decade. Now, this was 7 years before the group's second wave of popularity brought on by the MTV Marathon Weekend of 1986, so it was kind of a weird time to be a fan. Finding other kids who enjoyed that music was tough, and when I would tell adults, well, they would just kind of give me a weird look as far as that goes. I had no idea that this comic even existed. If I had, I would have been all about it as a kid. Let's see. It's, of course, Adele, as you can tell by this beautiful photographic cover. How does a comic about a pretend band that was created solely to sell music read without a laugh track? Or all those top 10 hits? Surprisingly well. The book itself doesn't bother to credit the creators, but a little research shows that this particular issue was written by Don Arniston and illustrated by Jose Delbo. While it's impossible to truly capture the magic that Mike, Mickey, Peter, and Davy conjured on the big screen, the comic does a fine job of maintaining the show's manic pace and endless stream of surreal sight gags. But maybe I'm biased. Not everyone is going to find jokes about Davy Jones being short funny, but if that sort of thing works for you, then you've hit the jackpot, Tiger. The stories themselves are potboiler monkey plots. The first concerns the boys being cast in a big Hollywood picture. After wildly exceeding the expectations of the casting director, the foursome get their big roles as extras in the Roman army. The next story involves a beautiful girl, a couch, some gangsters, counterfeit trading stamps, and wraps up with the monkeys riding for their lives on a Formula One racetrack. Here's a fun game. Try and pick a Monkees song that fits that theme. After careful consideration, I'm going to go with Your Auntie Griselda, but hey, that song fits pretty much everything, doesn't it? The issue wraps up with the spy hijinks promised on the cover. Now, I know the gag in the show was that the Monkees were poor musicians, but don't these guys ever change their clothes? Maybe the world's wholesale rejection of them isn't because they lack talent, but instead because they smell like the dead fish in Davy's pocket. It's food for thought. Okay, so it's not the strongest finish, but hey, without the tunes and the laugh track, the Monkees concept wears a little thin by the end. That said, this is a fun read, and it has some nice artwork and more 1960s references than you can shake your slinky at. It's good, clean fun from your folks at Dell. And now, because there's such a thing as too clean, let's get greasy by heading back into the world of Atlas Comics. Now, we've covered Atlas Comics here before. We looked at Target number 1 a few weeks back, but we're going to dig a little bit deeper with Police Action featuring Lomax. Who? Right! As our story begins, Detective Sam Lomax is enjoying one of New York's finest culinary experiences, the vendor cart hot dog. It's so good, he's even eating the wrapper. Being New York in the summer of '75, there's the obligatory bank robbery, which Lomax disrupts by shooting one of the fleeing perps in the back. Our hero, ladies and gentlemen. He chases the other guy into Central Park, but those damn citizens keep getting in the way. Hesitating, Lomax is winged. Hey, that's his hot dog eating arm. Now righteously pissed off, Lomax leaves the other perp dead in the water, returning to the vendor for his unfinished hot dog, but tragedy has struck. No, it wasn't thrown away. It turns out there was a third robber still inside of the bank, escaping and killing a cop after Lomax ran off. His appetite ruined, Lomax goes home, where he's fawned over by Baby. Well, I assume that's her name anyway, he says it enough. Before Lomax can get his swerve on, he's called back to the hot dog stand. It seems there's been another shooting, and this time it was a cop shot in the back. All signs point to Maxie, the hot dog vendor. But why? Lomax does some snooping, then reports back to the chief, who takes him to task for carrying a .357 Magnum, a powerful but non-regulation handgun. But Lomax loves his .357 almost as much as he loves hot dogs, and he isn't about to let a little thing like a demotion get in the way of carrying his hand cannon. Lomax pays another visit to Maxie, who helpfully explains his motivations for killing the other cops, before even more helpfully running into traffic and killing himself. Lomax gets to use his gun again, and the story ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. Where's he going to get his hot dogs now? In the book's second half, we meet Luke Malone, Manhunter. Now, as to the mystery of why Luke Malone is the Manhunter, when we pick up in this comic, it turns out he's working as a security guard at a rock concert. But have no fear. It turns out he's manhunting in his spare time. So it's all good. In this instance, Malone hunts some fleeing toll booth robbers right off of a nearby cliff. This seems a tad disproportionate when you consider their crimes, but hey, who am I to argue with the Manhunter here, huh? Malone shows up late for work but ready to deliver some swift justice. However, it turns out he's just here to watch the box office. No funny business. Meanwhile, backstage, some funny business has occurred. A headlining act has just fired his manager. Malone gets word of a heist that's about to go down. He assaults a hippie, breaks into a dressing room, and discovers an astonishing new turn of phrase. Right arm! Some gangsters arrive to rob the box office, but Malone and his trusty .357 are there to shoot more guys in the back. Anyone else sensing a theme here? There's some gunplay, and the Alice Cooper clone is arrested on stage for staging a box office robbery. The story goes on for an extra page because someone obviously miscounted, and instead of more glorious mayhem, we get a bunch of talking heads trying to describe the script's deficiencies. It's kind of a letdown after all the nitrate gobbling ultraviolence, but hey, it's an Atlas comic, and uneven is the rule and not the exception. In spite of a measly finish, this book was the bit of nasty fun that you want to read time and again. Oh, sure, it's not the sort of thing you want all the time, but it's well worth the occasional taste. And that wraps up another episode. If you enjoyed this video, please consider sponsoring us at the link below. Every little bit helps. I'm Jason Mink, and I hope to see you next Sunday. Prizes for this week's episode provided by Skrilla for Cribs. Need money fast? Sick and tired of staring at those same four walls? That's right, you can get paid cold hard Skrilla for your crib. Get out now. No questions asked. Want to know more? Hit 'em up. 1-800-SKRILLA.